the last place that I want my kids or my grandkids getting all their information on life and the birds and the bees is from a whole classroom full of other 13-year-olds. That's probably
Right.
not. That's like an alcoholic getting counseling from his bartender.
So your daughters have gone on to graduate their kids. How have you seen your family dynamics grow and change with your grandkids as a result of them being homeschooled?
Well, it's interesting because we have so much more time with our grandkids. I feel so sorry for so many grandparents today whose grandchildren are not being homeschooled because they only see their grandkids. There's no time anymore
Right.
because the kids get on the wait for the bus at 10 till 7. They get off the activity bus from junior high at like 5:15, grab a bite of dinner, start on their homework, go to bed. Grandparents are not even a part of the equation anymore. And it's a shame because the wisdom of grandparents um, is a tremendous asset for
Mm.
grandchildren. The last place that I want my kids or my grandkids getting all their information on life and the birds and the bees is from a whole classroom full of other 13-year-olds. That's probably
Right.
not. That's like an alcoholic getting counseling from his bartender. That's probably not a great way to do it. So we've been able to develop wonderful relationships. My oldest granddaughter got involved in horses, for example, and one of the great things about homeschooling is it allows kids to find out what they're good at and for us to develop those strengths into lifelong life-changing experiences. So one of our granddaughters became interested in horses, and that interest became um, really a passion. And so we were able to get her first horse. Eventually, became part of importing a horse from Belgium for her, which was quite an
Wow.
adventure. And then I went, and she and I stayed together down in Florida for one entire winter, where she was riding with some of the greatest world equestrians, taking lessons from the U.S. Olympic team coach, riding with a number of other Olympians from around the world. And so those kinds of experiences, uh, you have a chance to nurture those. But as much as I love that we can develop the strengths of our kids through homeschooling, we can also begin to compensate for their weaknesses because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And one of the things that I think every parent needs to know is that God didn't invite you to homeschool just for the sake of your kids. He invited you for your sake as a mama and for your husband's sake and for your sake as a family. Because only in the process, I think, of being together through the homeschooling journey can you really begin to explore those family dynamics because there's literally a couple of hours a week of family time if your kids are in a public school or even a private school classroom. And that process matures all of us. Um, I tell moms all this all the time. Do you realize that you have stuff? You realize as a mama you got stuff. We all have stuff. And maybe the Lord's been talking to you about your impatience or about your procrastination or about your failure to be able to do this or that since you were a little girl. And you've kind of gone on your way and ignored that. And so, if that's true, God gave you a husband so that you would have a living witness to remind you about your stuff. And if you were stiff necked, then He gave you children so that now you have several living witnesses to remind you about your stuff. And if you were still stubborn and stiff necked, He invites you to homeschool. And now you have a whole room full of little living witnesses all day long saying, Mama, why do you always wait till the last minute? Mama, why are you always so angry? Mama, why do you always lose your temper? Mama, why? And suddenly we come face to face with our stuff as parents, as fathers, as mothers. And the Lord knew that when He invited you to homeschool because He wanted to clean up some of your stuff, just like He
Mhm.
wanted you to help with your kids. And, I started smoking when I was 18. I was between high school and college. And already in 1968, when I graduated from high school, they already had cancer warnings on cigarette packs. None of us thought this was good for you. We knew it was a dangerous habit, but we didn't care because it was cool. And so I smoked for a number of years. But when I had my first daughter, I quit smoking in the house because I didn't want her to be exposed to secondhand smoke. And when my second daughter was born, I quit smoking altogether because I didn't want her to see that habit. Because love's a powerful motivator, and the things that we won't do even if the Lord asks us to deal with our stuff, sometimes love is the motivator that helps us get things done.
Mhm.
When we love our children or we love our grandchildren and we watch that process and that troubling look in their eye when they're like, Mama, why? Daddy, how come? It's a great way to not only raise your kids, but to bring yourself up to their level as well, as for the first time in your life, you begin dealing with some of the issues the Lord's been talking to you about since you were a little girl or a little boy. And I love that about homeschooling.